Good afternoon, welcome to This Week in Turkey. I know you were expecting Aylin as always, but I will be your host for today. So let's get the bulletin rolling. In a controversial tweet on Wednesday, President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan accused the main oppositions, CHP and Good Party, of being controlled by terrorist organizations.
In his tweet, President Erdoğan fiercely attacked the opposition parties. The tweet said, "In today's Turkey, two alliances face each other," and contained a chart with two columns. The red section of the chart listed the virtues of the ruling Justice and Development Party AKP and its alliance with the Nationalist Movement Party MHP. The black section, on the other hand, directly targeted the Nation Alliance, which is comprised of the main opposition Republican People's Party CHP and the Good Party. Millet, which is the Turkish word for nation, was replaced with zillet, meaning humiliation. The chart suggested that the so-called Alliance of Humiliation is controlled by Pennsylvania and Kandil, geographical references to the bases of FETÖ and the PKK. It further suggested that the opposition alliance consisted of liars and that its aim is to get terrorists elected.
Türkiye olacak.
Opposition leaders were quick to condemn the tweet, which was widely shared on social media. Good Party leader Meral Akşener said that the President of the Republic doesn't have the right to insult the people who don't vote for his party. CHP leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, on the other hand, stated that the tweet was a provocation. According to the latest polls, the AKP and the MHP are not expected to win a landslide. The race in major provinces such as Ankara and Istanbul is expected to be competitive due to rising unemployment and the sharp increase in food prices.
President Erdoğan has announced that the government will appoint trustees to those local municipalities they see as providing support to the PKK.
If you happen to send the opportunities provided by the state to Kandil, we will once again, immediately and without waiting any further, appoint our trustees, and we will not continue the way with you, Erdoğan said at a rally in the central Anatolian province of Yozgat on Monday. Erdoğan also touched on the alliance between the Republican People's Party CHP and Good Party, claiming it would change Turkey's boundaries in line with what terror organizations want, the economy would be bound to the IMF, and foreign policy would be in the hands of foreigners' interests if they were to come to power. Furthermore, the leaders of the ruling AKP and Nationalist Movement Party MHP will hold joint rallies as part of their People's Alliance in 3 major provinces for the upcoming local elections. The alliance's electoral campaign will kick off in the Aegean province of Izmir on March 17th. Following Izmir, the party's rallies will move to the capital Ankara on March 23rd. Another joint election rally will be held in Istanbul on March 24th. After their joint efforts to win the referendum to shift to a presidential system in 2017, the AKP and MHP formed the People's Alliance ahead of the June 24th elections last year. Their alliance will cover 51 provinces out of all 81 in the upcoming local elections.
Mahvederim diyor. Bakın, Trump.
On the opposition side, CHP chair Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu has vowed a historic vow in the southeastern province of Batman in the March 31st local elections. In the Batman rally, Kılıçdaroğlu said, "They say Batman is the capital of unemployment. They say external powers are behind this. Has the country been run by external forces for the last 17 years? We are living in the hell on earth. I hope we will win in Istanbul, Izmir, Bursa, Mersin, Adana and Ankara in the local elections." In addition, CHP chair Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu will hold joint meetings with the Good Party chair Meral Akşener in the western provinces. The joint rally with Akşener will be on March 6th in Denizli, March 7th in Aydın, and March 17th in Balıkesir.
As local elections loom, the focus, as always, is on Istanbul and Ankara. Polls show that the mayoral race in these cities is wide open. Ankara might even change hands after 24 years. But President Recep Tayyip Erdogan does not believe polls anymore. Journalists Murat Yetkin, Deniz Zeyrek, and pollster Ibrahim Uslu explain the president's newfound disbelief in polling results.
President Erdogan has recently stated that he doesn't believe pollsters anymore. Those polls and such, I don't trust them anymore, the president has said on live TV. In his English blog, journalist Murat Yetkin suggests that President Erdogan's comments might come as a surprise to many who follow him closely, as it was Erdogan himself who relied extensively on public opinion polls. Yetkin further suggests that Erdogan has owed his political success partly to this research-based approach, starting from his election as mayor of Istanbul in the mid-1990s. According to Yetkin, this change has to do with the decline in people's support for Erdogan. Here is what Yetkin writes on his blog.
Before Erdogan's move to discredit polling companies, pollsters had revealed their January results. The impression from those results showed that in Ankara, AK Party candidate Mehmet Özaseki was losing ground against the Republican People's Party's Mansur Yavaş. In Izmir, the pollsters say the CHP candidate Tunç Soyer is at least 10 points ahead of the AK Party candidate Nihat Zeybekçi. There is a possibility that AK Party's alliance with the Nationalist Movement Party, MHP, can lose two big cities like Bursa and Adana. In Istanbul, AK Party's votes increased some 3% above the CHP candidate Ekrem İmamoğlu. Only after Binali Yıldırım was asked by Erdogan to resign from the Speaker of Parliament post and became the AK Party candidate. The pollsters claim that the overall AK Party votes have dropped below 40%. By saying that he lost confidence in polls, Erdogan in fact indirectly tells media outlets owned by industrial groups close to him, 90% according to current estimates, that he doesn't want to see poll results in the media. The Turkish media today, in Erdogan's orbit, is mostly addressing the potential AK Party voters anyway.
Daily Sözcü's Deniz Zeyrek also believes that Erdogan's statement has to do with his party losing ground. In his column, Zeyrek writes that the situation could even be worse for him and that the AKP could lose more cities.
Pollsters say that in order to consolidate national support, AK Party has to continue to associate the HDP with terrorism. But this has led to many HDP voters, especially in Istanbul, to distance themselves from the AKP.
ANAR's General Director Ibrahim Uslu also told Medyascope that the AKP and its nationalist ally MHP will get lower than 50% of the votes combined.
It is clear that there will be a loss of votes. We see that the AK Party and MHP alliances will not get 52% of the vote, like they expected. I would even say that they will get below 50%.
Joining us today for what we are going to expect from the elections is journalist Ferhat Boratav. Ferhat, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'll just get right into it. What did you first feel when you saw President Erdogan's tweet, and what do you make of the coloring of the visual?
Red and black.
Red and black.
Well, I think this is an old habit of these lands. In the Byzantine capital, there were greens and blues. The Ottoman capital had the bamyacı, lahanacı, the cabbage and okra people. This kind of polarization probably is an old habit, but on a more sincere tone, this seems to be the only political weapon left to AKP nowadays, to polarize the society, to divide the society into two camps, and then make everything possible to consolidate their part of this division. And that's exactly what's happening right now. I have to say, politics has become like that in Turkey. Politics of all kinds, all sides, are trying to consolidate their bases. The attempts to reach to the other side are minimal and usually not very effective. So they see, why should we try it? Let's find a way to make sure that those who voted for us in the last election will vote for us again. And that's enough for us. That's the way politics is done nowadays in Turkey.
And does this approach, I mean, really find support among the voting base? I mean, not only for the AKP or the MHP, but also for the CHP, the Good Party?
Well, it finds support in the sense that, yes, those who have voted for these parties in the last election will probably go and vote again. The main difference this time is there is a quite high number of people who would say, I'm not going to vote at all. I can't find anybody who represents my worries. That's still a big number as far as we can see in the polls. And that's, of course, a very big problem for the opposition parties, because in the contests like that, not participating in the election usually works on behalf of the bigger parties, and therefore this kind of a tendency is a problem with the opposition parties. Other than that, it seems so that as if everybody is happy with the results they have got in the last election, and why not, you would say. I mean, if CHP would get more or less the same results, maybe a bit more, they would say, despite all what's happening in this country, despite all the efforts by the government plus by the state, we still have maintained our power. So all the parties seem to be quite happy to repeat the results of the last election.
And I mean, what is your take on President Erdogan's now saying that he doesn't trust the polls anymore? Because he was the one actually who brought public opinion polls into our political lives. Yes,
that's true. And I think they still do polling very effectively. The problem with the polls is, I think, twofold. One is obvious. People are afraid to tell what they think to the pollsters. They don't trust that interaction. They think the pollsters would reveal their identities to the authorities, etc. There is an atmosphere of fear, obviously, and people are afraid to tell what they think sincerely. And therefore, polls go wrong. And they did go wrong in the past elections, and probably they will go wrong in this election as well. The other problem is what the pollsters now call the shy electors, people who are decided what to vote, but they can't say this. Why? Well, first of all, if they are voting for the government, in their close circle, they can't defend the government. How can you defend a government that has put the economy in such a bad shape, or this or that? So they don't reveal their votes. So these two factors combined, the shy voters and the voters who are afraid to tell the truth, plus the high number of undecided voters make the results vulnerable to this kind of criticisms. Still, I believe that if you do the polling in a correct way, you get more or less a good result at the end of it. I still haven't lost my faith in polling, and I think there are still a few, not very much, but a few pollsters who do a decent job. And if you look at them, if you look what they are telling us, you see that the main problem right now is that the voters are now divided into blocks, and these blocks are literally locked. They don't move a lot. There is a very few, maybe 8 to 10% of the voters who would maybe change their attitude. And the whole idea is how you are going to divide that 8 to 10% of the voters. Who is going to get their vote? That's what politics is reduced to nowadays in Turkey.
Yeah, so actually it would actually make sense to focus and to consolidate the existing basis of support.
It makes sense in the short term to win this election. It makes sense. The problem is, it doesn't make sense at all to have a viable, healthy, democratic public life. Because, okay, this kind of a voters bloc brings you the victory, but it leaves behind a divided country and people who hate each other. This is not a healthy situation.
I mean, if big cities like Istanbul, Ankara, and also, I mean, other major cities like Bursa, Adana, Balıkesir, if they change hands, if they go to the opposition, do you think that would lead to a change in Turkish politics?
Good question, and many people ask the same question. There is one more question, actually, that people ask, and maybe we should talk about as well. I think the main question this election will be Ankara. I'm not so certain whether things will change a lot in Istanbul, but Ankara obviously is still in the balance. And if the government, if the governing party would lose Ankara, it will be a blow to their legitimacy. But they can survive it, no problem. The other thing is, of course, this is a local election. Despite all this talk about survival of the nation, this is a local election. Whatever the outcome, it won't change what's happening in Ankara. A third factor, now we have such a political system that everything is in the hands of the executive. Whatever changes we have in the legislative, whether local or national, doesn't affect much what the executive can do. So in that sense, I don't think that the results will change a lot in Turkey. The interesting thing is this. One camp, AKP and MHP, the governing party, plus its allies, the Nationalist Party, they go into elections with joint lists, which means that we won't know which party would get what percentage of the votes. That, I think, would lead to a situation where the minor partner of this alliance, the MHP, would have a much more greater say in the politics of this country after the election.
And they would be able to take credit for things
exactly.
where we do not have any information.
Exactly. They would say, we have won this election because we have been in this alliance. And there won't be any numbers to prove otherwise. So they will, I think, they will use this to get a bigger share in the politics or in the day-to-day operations in Ankara than before.
And how do you assess HDP's strategy? I mean, they have not put forward any candidates in the major cities, and this leads to an assumption that their voters will support the opposition. Yes. Do you think this is a viable strategy?
I think so. And one of these reliable pollsters that we were talking about, Bekir Ağırdır, Konda, he claims that 8 of every 10 HDP voter would support the opposition in the big cities. It's a sizable number. So again, they will also be able to say, if say CHP would win Ankara, they would say, okay, you have won because we supported you. Again, there will be this will be very, very difficult to prove otherwise by using numbers. But in the cities in the southeast, they have put forward candidates, and despite all the threats that these candidates will be replaced by appointed mayors, I think the Kurdish voters in those towns will vote for the HDP candidates. That attitude won't change.
And last questions, Ferhat. President Erdogan is now on the field for the last 10 days. He's doing sometimes 2 meetings a day.
More than that.
CHP leader is on the field. Meral Akşener, good party leader, is on the field. And will this change in these last 30 days? Can this lead to any change? Or do you think, I mean, this is how it's going to be?
It will make an impact in the way we discussed earlier. I mean, it will consolidate their voters. I think President Erdogan is a formidable campaigner. When he is on the campaign trail, it definitely makes an impact. The other leaders, I think, are not doing enough. They have to do more to make an impact. They have to provide more visibility. They have to make their voices heard. There is no other way than this to reach the voters. You can't expect the voters think themselves and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. They want to hear what the candidates are saying. They want to hear what the other parties are saying. So in that sense, I think they have to do more to have an impact. Whether all that will change the minds of this 8 to 10% of the voters that are in the middle, that's difficult to say. Circumstances might affect these voters much more than what the leaders are saying. And when I say circumstances, I have, for instance, in mind the basic dynamics of the economy, the way the markets, the dollar exchange rate, unemployment, these kind of things will definitely have much more impact on the outcome, even in this last 30 days, than what the individual leaders are saying.
Ferhat Boratav, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Let's see what will happen.
Let's see what will happen. Yes, we had Ferhat Boratav, and now let's move on. White House advisor Jared Kushner discussed his Israeli-Palestinian peace efforts with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Wednesday.
Accompanied by Trump's Middle East envoy Jason Greenblatt and Iran envoy Brian Hook, Kushner is touring the region to build support for what he reportedly calls the deal of the century. About the meeting, the White House has said, they discussed increasing cooperation between the United States and Turkey and the Trump administration's efforts to facilitate peace between the Israelis and Palestinians. Additionally, they discussed ways to improve the condition of the entire region through economic investment. Finance Minister and Erdogan's son-in-law, Berat Albayrak, was also present in the two-hour meeting at the presidential complex in Ankara. Kushner's Ankara visit comes amid strained bilateral relations. In January, President Erdogan snubbed Trump's national security advisor John Bolton, refusing to meet him during his visit to Ankara. Despite ongoing pressures, Erdogan continues to describe his relationship with Trump as positive.
Kurdish-Turkish journalist and painter Zehra Doğan has been released from prison. She had been in prison for more than 2 years.
Doğan was detained in July 2016 in Nusaybin for sharing her paintings on social media and reporting on the notes of a 10-year-old girl. The painting in question depicted the town of Nusaybin in the province of Mardin, which was destroyed after the military operations in 2016. Turkish authorities believed this painting associated the artist with the PKK, which is considered a terrorist organization by Turkey. She was arrested under the charges of membership to a terrorist organization and spreading terrorist propaganda. I was waiting for the day when my sentence would come to an end. I am very happy. I extend my thanks to every single person who supported me during this process, Doğan said. I will continue to do journalism, for resting is a luxury for us, she added. Zehra Doğan was granted the Metin Göktepe Journalism Award in 2015 for a news report titled The Scream of the Yazidi Woman.
That's all from This Week in Turkey. Thanks for tuning in, and I promise you next week, Aylin will be your host again. Have a great weekend.